Hey guys, everything new and sun here. I saw this article. Where's it from? From express.co.uk, and it's about Tony Blair, and it kind of stood out to me, and it made me think of the times that we're in. Tony Blair thought he was the Messiah, and often wore makeup. Ex-PM's former friend claims. And it made me think of again the end times and the Bible verses specifically about deceivers in the last days and antichrists, all over the place coming up, thinking they're the Messiah. This webpage from KingJamesBibleOnline.org kind of lists a bunch of verses about the Antichrist, and I thought it would be interesting to look at some of these and then have a quick look at the article. And let's see, start with Revelation is about the beast rising. Start here. 2 John 1:7. For many deceivers are entered into the world who confess not that Jesus Christ is come in the flesh. This is a deceiver and an antichrist. And these are all kind of types or examples of antichrists who have come. And I think it's interesting that Tony Blair thought he was that, because a lot of various prophecy experts maybe suggested that Tony Blair was a good one world government leader. He would be in a good position for that. And many think now that Barack Obama is actually angling to be leader of the world, or has aspirations greater than the U.S. once he leaves the office in the U.S. in November of this year, 2016. And will he move on to be maybe a leader of the NATO or whatever? Ban Ki-moon's position, leader of, and hold on. Yes, Ban Ki-moon, Secretary General of the United Nations. That's what I was trying to think of. So many think maybe he is angling for that job after he's out, and I think Tony Blair was angling for that possibly, and he was certainly a person on the world stage who could have moved towards that sort of position. 1 John 2:22. Who is a liar but he that denieth Jesus is the Christ? He is the Antichrist, but denieth the Father and the Son. Let's see which one specifically talk about the false prophets. Mark 13:22. For false prophets, false Christs and false prophets shall rise, and shall show signs and wonders to seduce, if it were possible, even the elect. Matthew 24:24. For they shall arise false Christs and false prophets, and shall show great signs and wonders, insomuch that if it were possible they would deceive the very elect. Revelation 13, of course, speaking of the mark of the beast and the Antichrist at that point in time. Let's see. Mark 13:6. For many shall come in my name, saying, I am the Christ, and shall deceive many. So I think there's, and it goes on. I think there's many who will come and think they are the Messiah, and also will vocally suggest they are the Messiah, and many will be deceived by it, on a kind of shallow level or maybe a deeper level, whether people believe that or not. But anyways, I just thought of the Antichrist and the Antichrists deceiving in the end days, and many coming forward. So what do we got here? Tony Blair, left right here, thought he was godlike and is strange mentally, says Robert Harris. Robert Harris, a best-selling novelist and former journalist, said that Mr. Blair had a messianic view of politics, and the Chilcot Review was like him being nailed to the cross. Harris shed light on personal details about Mr. Blair, such as his reported desire to wear makeup regularly. He said he often wore makeup even when he wasn't on TV. Maybe it just appealed to his sense of always being a performer. Robert Harris has slammed Tony Blair and questioned his mental state. Tony Blair looked like Christ nailed to the cross after Chilcot report, Mr. Harris said. This could be all goofy hearsay by Harris, but it's just interesting. adding to the notion that Mr. Blair being a very egotistical leader, Mr. Harris declared his shock at Mr. Blair's view of himself, and also how much he had disintegrated mentally. The 59-year-old said he had a very personal messianic view of politics. As things went wrong, he developed a kind of messianic strategy that really almost reached full flowering with the publication of the Chilcot Report. It was like Christ nailed to the cross. There was massive public backlash to the war in Iraq. You can never be sure where the public performance ends and where the man begins who was playing Christ on the cross. He added he's morphed into a figure that's not quite of this world. He said all prime ministers go mad in the end, but none gone quite as strange as Tony Blair. And it goes on. And I think Tony Blair was one of those people who could have and maybe still will go on to bigger things, apparently, as the Bible at least describes, bigger things, leading the NATO, leading the United Nations in Ban Ki-moon's position, taking part in these larger world gathering organizations that are very prophetic in their fulfillment, in their deployment, in their oversight. And so Tony Blair is one of these people who was kind of angling for a high United Nations global sort of position. And I think a lot of people are suggesting that Barack Obama would be a great person to fulfill some of those roles as well in the United Nations. And apparently Ban Ki-moon is, I think I spoke of this before, he is retiring or resigning or whatever. His term comes to an end. I forget, I think it's just after the November U.S. presidential election, maybe February 2017 or something. And so it's a great time for another leader will step in to replace Ban Ki-moon. And so who could it be? Tony Blair would obviously love to have a position like that. And like I say, a lot of people suggest that Obama could be heading towards that. Not saying that he is the Antichrist, but there'll be a lot of people that are kind of stepping up and want to be world leaders. And any one of those world leaders could move right into the position of Antichrist. So this is not conspiracy talk. This is how politics works. When the one world government gets set up, as the Bible describes, whoever's leading it will be the Antichrist. So what we're looking for is people who are looking to be on the world stage as leaders, and any one of those could potentially become Antichrist. Maybe someone totally different, but prophetically speaking, any one of these big leaders could become the Antichrist. Even Ban Ki-moon, but his term is ending, and so I think we're moving into a world time when I think everything is there ready. All we need is an economic collapse or a war, and then we need one world leader who is in power, maybe the United Nations, to say, look, we will take over as the United Nations, as an example, and bring everybody together and feed everybody and correct everything. And the world has to be in such a dire situation at that time that everybody says, yes, I will give my sovereignty, everything and pledge my allegiance to this world leader, this world organization, as long as I can get food. So I think these things are coming, and again, I thought it was an interesting, very prophetic article, and I think there's a lot of Antichrist type figures that are kind of moving up in the ranks and looking to lead the world, and certainly Tony Blair is one who was possibly able to do it. So I'll leave it there, guys. Thanks for watching. We will see you in the next video.